In this lesson, we will explore grid and snap. The closest analogy to grid in the real world is graph paper. Snap, on the other hand, essentially quantizes space so that your cursor no longer moves continuously, but instead snaps from one place to another, according to a spacing value that you set. Snap is typically used with grid, and a good rule of thumb is to set snap spacing at half the grid spacing. We will also explore polar snap, which is used in conjunction with polar tracking, and isometric snap, which is used exclusively to create 2D isometric drawings. Open the Part 1 project file. We're going to be replicating this part over here on the right half of the screen. But first, let's set up the status bar. Toggle on Dynamic Input, Grid, and Snap, and then right-click on either Grid or Snap and choose Settings. That will bring you here to the Snap and Grid tab of the Drafting Settings dialog box. Let's set the grid spacing at twice the increment of the snap spacing. So I'll highlight this value and type 1 and press Tab. The grid Y spacing automatically will match the grid X spacing. Make sure you have Grid Snap and Rectangular Snap selected, and then click OK. Go up to the Line tool and click it, and notice that as you move the cursor in the drawing window, it jumps from one point to another. This is the effect of snap. Move the cursor over here horizontally from the red line, and click at this major grid line, which is the brighter gray line on the screen. Move the mouse horizontally to the left, and you can see that it says 5 units right there in the dimension that's highlighted, and that matches the dimension at the bottom of the part diagram. So I'll click right here and move the mouse down. Let's ignore the arcs right now. We'll get to those later. I'll go down here and draw this at 2 units in a vertical direction. Move over to the right, and this is dimensioned at 2.5 units in the diagram. So I'll click right here. Move down 2 snap increments, so I have a distance of 1. I'll just click right here. And I'll just continue clicking and drawing this very simple diagram using grid and snap. When I get to the end up here, I'll press the space bar to end the line command. And then I'll press it again to repeat the line command. And I'll draw a vertical line right down here by clicking 2 points. Press the space bar, press it again, draw a horizontal line across here, space bar, click 2 more points, press the space bar again, and then notice that these lines have a dashed appearance. That's controlled by line type. Select these 2 lines, right-click to open the context menu, and choose Properties. In the Properties palette, you'll find a line type parameter. Click right here to activate the control, and then click again to open the drop-down. Select Hidden from the list, and then press Escape to deselect the lines, and then click the Close box to close the Properties palette. Next, let's draw this arc here. Open the arc flyout, select Start Center End, click the start point here, the center point here, and the end point here. We need to get rid of this vertical line. Use the Erase tool, select the line, and press Enter. Now this looks good, except it's over 1 unit from where it should be, according to the diagram. Let's stretch the geometry. Click Stretch. And the Stretch command works differently than most of the other Modify commands, in that you must select what you want to stretch with a crossing window. You can't just click on it. You have to do a crossing window. So click below the area that you want to select and to the right. Move up and to the left to make a crossing window. click again to select, press Enter to exit Select Objects mode, specify a base point at some arbitrary location on screen, move horizontally to the left 1 snap increment, and then click. That's all there is to it. Now up here I'd like to put in this arc. An efficient way to do that is to use the Fillet tool. I'll click Fillet, and then come down here and click Radius. We'll set the radius to 0.5, press Enter, and then click these two lines to fillet them together with that radius value. Press the spacebar to repeat fillet, set a new radius value of 1, press Enter, click these two lines to fillet them together with a radius of 1. So we've successfully replicated the part using Grid and Snap. Now I'll pan over to the right and let's take a look at Polar Snap. Right-click on the Snap toggle, go to Settings, and choose Polar Snap. The polar distance is set here, and I'll leave it set to 1. Polar Snap works with polar tracking, so we need to turn that mode on as well. Draw a line, and notice that the cursor no longer jumps from place to place as it did before with rectangular snap. Instead, Polar Snap is a relative coordinate system. I'll click a first point anywhere, and you can see that now I can jump in whole increments relative to that point that I clicked. I can also do that on an angle, and the angle, of course, is controlled right here. If you right-click on the polar tracking tool, you can set the angle that you want to work at. Let me try 30 degrees. Now I can draw a line that's horizontal or one that's at 30 degrees, and I can create these lines in these whole integer distances. I'll press the spacebar to end the command. Finally, I'd like to show you isometric snap. So I'll right-click on the snap toggle, go to Settings, and that's available here under Grid Snap, Isometric Snap. OK. As soon as I select that, the cursor changes to this isometric cursor. And you can toggle the ISO plane with the F5 key. So press F5, and you switch to the top plane, the right plane, the left plane, and then back to the top plane. So you cycle through these 3 planes. Let's turn on ortho instead of polar mode. Let's draw a line from some arbitrary location, and I'll draw it 5 units in length. I'll draw another line in this direction that's, again, 5 units in length. Another one, 5 units, and I'll go back to the start point. I'll press spacebar to end and restart the line command, and then I'll press the F5 key to toggle the ISO plane. I'll come over here and snap to that point, move down 5 units, move over 5 units, and up 5 units. Spacebar, the F5 key to toggle the ISO plane. Then I'll just draw in these last 2 lines to complete this representation of a cube. I'll press the spacebar to end. So this is a 2-dimensional representation of a 3-dimensional object. You now know how to use Grid and Snap as aids to help you draw objects whose dimensions happen to be integer multiples of a given increment. Needless to say, not all objects in the real world are designed with integer measurements in mind, so Snap has limited utility. Snap is not to be confused with Object Snap, which is a different concept entirely.